Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Monday, March 14th, 2022, and today I'll be sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find the podcast, all episodes of the podcast, along with links to social media, ways to donate, and ways to contact me on the podcast page, which is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions on shows or topic suggestions for shows, or you have stories of experiences you'd like to share, whether they're your own or others that you trust. You're welcome to contact me and either send those in a text format that I can read on the show, or if you want to join me on the show, I'm happy to have you here as well to do that. Just a quick recap of the plans for the week. Today, after today, tomorrow and Wednesday, basically, we'll be doing true ghost stories from the web. And then Thursday will be another book review. And Friday will be the continuation of the Paranormal Mountains series on Friday. So, the second part of that. So that's basically what's going on this week. And I think that covers everything. So let's see here. Let's get back to the story here. See how it goes this time. Had to restart once, so that's what I mean by that. But anyway, see here. Okay, good. Yeah, the Word document wasn't even scrolling earlier. I don't even know what was going on with that. Okay, so this story says, this happened when I was about 20 or 21. I was sleeping one night, pretty deep into a dream, when it felt like my dream was interrupted, for lack of a better word. And it felt like my head and upper body was being propped up by my arm because I couldn't feel the pillow. I found myself in a sepia-colored hallway, shadows on either side of me, and a bright doorway at the end. I felt a sense of confidence go through me, like I was going to walk down the hallway and be great at it. That is, it was going to be the greatest thing I ever did. As I started stepping, I was blocked by an older woman who had stepped out in front of me. She was looking right at me. Before I could ask why she was blocking me, I woke up, head still on the pillow. I grew up with a kind of legend my mother told me about how the spirits are in a hallway and they go out at midnight and have to be back at 3:15 a.m. I've tried looking up what I saw, but can't find anything that makes sense to me. I don't think it was a near-death experience, but maybe I was somewhere I shouldn't have been. I really don't know. And that's a amazing story there. Quite the experience. So I don't know. It does sound like maybe they had done some kind of traveling in their sleep, and they ended up somewhere, like they said, maybe that they shouldn't have gone. But so yeah, I don't know what to make of that. That they did say that there was that legend is interesting. I'm kind of wanting to look it up now and see if I can find something similar. But yeah, so maybe they got to some other dimension or plane of reality where they weren't supposed to be. Maybe it was some kind of a spirit dimension as well, or it could have just been some other one. But really wild. At least nothing else happened to them. I mean, that's a good thing. So yeah, very interesting little story there. But so let's see here. We will go on to the next one just because that one, there's not much more to get out of that one overall. I mean, but very interesting. So this next one says, in my old apartments, I went to a family friend, the apartment of a family friend who was down the road from us. I was with my mom, brother, other little brother, and they said me. So we stayed there until it turned night, and we left and started to walk home. Once we got to the door, I don't know, but I felt pretty scared. And so I looked to my right, and it was the forest that we lived a few houses away from. And I saw a tall, skinny creature that was all black and had a plain white face. I saw it and I panicked, but my mom opened the door and I ran in and started to watch religious videos because I was scared. Can someone tell me what this was? This was a few years ago. And no, I cannot tell anyone what that was. Dark figure, white face. That is odd. Doesn't sound like, I mean, you don't really hear about any kind of Bigfoot having a white face. I've heard of either dark figures or light figures, but not really that mixture of those two. But unless it was some kind of a person just really doing weird stuff, dressed in all dark with some kind of a mask on. Almost makes me think this is something that's come up recently in other chats and other shows. The idea about clowns. Excuse me. Almost makes me think of a clown, but without any other colors except for like the makeup or the mask on their face. Either way, it does sound creepy. That's yeah, I agree. APOC, no clowns, please. Yeah, that's just that white face part is what makes me wonder about something similar, maybe. So yeah, it's odd. And the writer doesn't say that the rest of their family saw it. So, then again, I guess if they weren't looking in that direction, maybe they wouldn't have seen it. Or if it was something paranormal, maybe they wouldn't have seen it anyway. Yeah, or if I had more detail. Yeah. So, like eyes or nose, right? Yeah, because the writer just said a white face. They didn't really say this. They just described the face, so maybe that's even weirder. If it didn't have a face, that'd be even worse. So yeah, that's an anomaly in and of itself. I've never heard of something just like that before. So let's see here. All right, well, we'll move on to the next story. And let's see here. Okay, I went too far. I gotta go back up again. All right. So this one says, many years ago, while living in my first apartment, where several strange and scary experiences happened, I saw a bright white orb for the first and only time in my life. I was lying in bed with all the lights off, faint light coming from the hallway through the bedroom door, about to go to sleep, saying goodnight to my boyfriend, who was sitting on the bed facing me. Suddenly, I saw a bright white orb about 5 or 6 inches in diameter zip into the room, in my bedroom door, and fly super fast across the room, disappearing into the full-length mirror that was hanging on my closet door, facing the bedroom door. my eyes got as wide as saucers, as I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. And my boyfriend saw the shock and terror in my eyes, which scared him. We both heard a faint knocking or rustling sound coming from the closet area when it happened. And after telling him what I saw, we jumped up to check, but of course found nothing. I was really shook, and then felt compelled to go outside and just stare at the sky for a bit, dumbfounded, contemplating what I had just witnessed. I've had a handful of unexplainable experiences so far, but this one was the most vivid by far, and I think of it often. So that's where that one ends. That's really interesting that there was a light that went through the room into the mirror, but then it's like there was a shock wave or something, or disturbance given off by maybe that impact or that passing. And that's kind of why I included it, because on the one hand, you can maybe just label it as like a haunting, but that's the thing with orbs or with lights. It could really be a lot of different things. It could be anything. So, and then the sounds in the closet after, it's like there was a force behind it, and it just kind of maybe rattled the door or whatever was in the closet for just a second or two. I thought that was really interesting, and it goes back to some of the earliest shows. Well, maybe not earliest, but the earlier this year at the very least. Well, actually last year now. Where we talked about mirrors, and then other shows I've done with other people on mirrors. So, if you look up Triple Minds Radio, I did a show with Mike on mirrors. So, really interesting though. I thought that was neat just because of all those circumstances, and it's in a place where there's other activity, so apparently. So, yeah, I thought that was a pretty amazing one. I had to share that one. So, but and then I think, let me look at the next story here, because I think the next story was about another orb. Let's see here. Oh, nope, that's not the next one, but I know there's another one in here. So, we will get back to that one. Mirrors are, yeah, Apox says mirrors have odd energy, and they do, and they can. And I do think some of it goes back to antique mirrors, but not in every case, because like I said before, every once in a while when I go to use, into my bathroom for whatever, I will get this feeling like there is energy, or there is something or someone in or near that mirror, and I don't look. I intentionally just do not look. And it's not all the time. Most of the time I go in there and I can look, and it's just fine. So, and it makes me wonder now, because if you think about it, if you have an apartment building, there could be mirrors almost in a line across the entire building, depending on the layout of the apartments. So maybe that's not something that I'm applying to that story, but just to my own situation here, makes me wonder if there are. In fact, I know there is. Yeah, I'm just thinking of. I won't go into detail, but yeah, almost like a portal, and it just makes me wonder if there's several of these things lined up, even though there's walls between them. If that could be almost like a little highway, or even like almost like a bus station, a terminal for activity. That's a lovely thought as I'm sitting here in my apartment. So, but no, I'm not worried. But that's just funny. So, okay, we'll go on to the next story here. It says, when I was a kid, I used to have very strange flashbacks and images in my thoughts that I can't explain to this day. They all felt like they were from the era of the 80s. It was certain external trigger factors that caused these flashbacks. For example, weather, mostly rainy and dark, certain smells, music, or certain places that suddenly seem strangely familiar to me, even though I have never been there before. What I see are single images. For example, how I sit in an office at one of the typical computers of the 80s, how I rush through rainy streets in the evening, presumably after a long day at work, or how I work at home on a computer like typewriter. It was especially bad when I first heard a specific pop song from 1987. It sent shivers down my spine because I had another flashback, a very real one where I was lying in a hospital. I'm in my 20s now, and these memories are significantly less vivid than they used to be. But what I still experience is a kind of nostalgia that is triggered by certain music genres or movies, but doesn't bring up particular images. I read about anemoia. It's Anemoia, a phenomenon of nostalgia which is currently described particularly described as particularly strong by millennials. Trends like dark academia or the sudden popularity of 80s city pop, which I had never even heard of, or Polaroid, etc., are said to be related to this. I believe that I have a vivid imagination and I'm a very thoughtful person, but to this day I still wonder how sometimes out of nowhere these images arise and where this feeling comes from that cannot be put into words. Assuming that one believes in reincarnation, would it then be possible to assume that this feeling this is described as anemoia is somehow related to it? And that's where that one ends. And I just had to share that because that is just really interesting. Um, a lot of little details in there. And if they're writing this anytime recently, I mean, they said they're like in their 20s. Um, that means they would have been born around 2000, maybe a little bit earlier, a little bit later. So that means they were not around in the 80s. In their, if you subscribe to reincarnation, they were not around in the 80s in their current form. So I had to share that because that's just a whole lot of details that I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. So yeah, I don't know. Apex says, I wonder if my futuristic dreams could be similar. I don't know. It makes me wonder now about that house. Depending on that where I had that last crazy dream with all the lights coming down. If that's a futuristic thing or a past thing or what that was. But yeah, really odd. So yeah, that's I thought that was a neat one to find and to share. So, yep, yeah, possibly may have been a different time that experience. And I've talked about that in recent shows, so I won't go into that again. But basically, it was just for a quick description. I was listening to Trouble Minds radio. I had fallen asleep in my chair, and I found myself in this house where my aunt and uncle and their three kids, my cousins, used to live. And this happens once in a while. I'll have an out-of-body experience where I go there. But this was different because it didn't fit the current time in terms of weather as the one of the main things there. It's Michigan, so it was winter when I had this dream, middle of winter, and the people that were there were not dressed for winter at all. So yeah, go back to, I believe I did either one or two episodes on my dreams. I think I included that there, but either way, yeah, definitely interesting. So I've got two more stories to go through here. And then that'll be it for today. So let's see here. Okay, this one says, this happened in my neighbor's yard. I got home from work last night and did the usual routine. I started up a streaming TV service and continued my binge on a TV show. And just so everyone knows, I try to stay away from using brand names here, just in case. It says, about an hour in, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something bright red. At first I thought it was a car light, and I went back to my show. But then I was thinking, wait, hold on a second. It is in my neighbor's backyard. No way it's a car light. Right next to the sofa there is a row of windows. So I looked out the windows and saw a bright red orb that was pulsing. This orb stayed there for about a minute and eventually changed color to yellow and then shrank, got smaller, and went away. Side note, I have always been somewhat interested in the paranormal, but have never had anything actually happen other than maybe something that night. Whatever it was really weird. And there's the other orb story I mentioned that I knew I had. Sounds like something was just hanging out outside, and then went away. But again, that goes back to, what are these lights? You know, what are they made of? What is it more than just light? How do they come and go? So many questions about all that. So, but yeah, another interesting one there with the lights, with the orbs. So I'll get to this last story here. This one was a little bit longer, so that's good. This one says, when I was in the 7th grade, my sister and I went to the woods next to our school to explore. The woods are thick, but a relatively small patch. About 5 minutes into the walk, we felt a change, like we were being watched, or almost like we were dreaming. At that moment, a large deer, a buck, with enormous antlers, stood up. The deer stands there for about 10 feet from us. It doesn't panic or scare. It just stands there. And as it does, the world felt like it stopped. And at that time, I felt like I was being spoken to. A form of communication without words. But it was a connection I've never felt before. That feeling lasted for a minute and then faded. The deer then turned and calmly walked away, disappearing into the brush. My sister and I only told our parents we saw a deer. We never talked about how close or the strange occurrences that came with it. I never told anyone that I felt like the deer or creature spoke to me. Now, 20 years later, I retold the story with some family and my sister present. As I told the story up to when the deer looked at us, my sister cut in to say, and I swear that deer had unnatural antlers, and I swear it spoke to me. We freaked out because we never spoke of it talking. So now I'm looking for answers. Some friends told me it could be a skinwalker, but I'm not sure. We didn't get any evil or negative feelings from this. If anyone knows of anything, would love to hear about it. And location is in Michigan, USA. So, of course, I was interested in that because I live in Michigan, and there's all kinds of deer out there. So, this one sounds a little bit different. Sounds like just the feelings that they got around it were interesting, and it makes you wonder what that was. Because, like they said, it didn't feel evil, which is good. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some kind of nature spirit kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah, psychic communication. Yeah, maybe APAC. It did sound like it was something like that. Although it didn't really, there were no words, but that's still interesting. And just the sense of the world changing around them through the whole thing too, I thought was important. So, but yeah, that was an odd one. And I think that's a good way to end the show here. So, but anyway, thank you all for listening. And that's it for today. Tomorrow will be more true ghost stories from the web. So until then, thank you all. Oh, interesting. Real quick here. Apoc says Sasquatch sightings can have stuff like that. Yes, I have heard of that. Yeah. Telepathy and yeah. Yeah, so very interesting. But okay, well, thank you all again. And I'll talk to you all tomorrow night on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care. Have a good night.